Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending the City of Canning's agenda briefing for Tuesday evening, the 11th of February 2025, first official meeting of the year, and it is now 6 p.m. Welcome, one and all. We acknowledge the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land. We pay our respects. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending the City of Canning's agenda briefing for Tuesday evening, the 11th of February. This is a first. I'm very happy with it, actually. I thought that guy sounded strangely like me, and it was actually me. In accordance with the City of Canning's policy CM 105, agenda briefings are conducted to provide elected members with a forum to ask questions of the City's administration to enable informed decision-making by Council at the following week's ordinary Council meeting. And agenda briefings are not decision-making forums. Questions may be asked and answered, but no debate or discussion is permitted. Questions must specifically relate to an item on tonight's agenda. Elected members and employees must disclose any financial proximity or partiality interest they have in an item on the agenda and declare the interest at the commencement of the briefing or at the very latest when the item is about to be discussed. Financial proximity and impartiality interests are to be disclosed in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 1995 as they apply to council meetings. And elected members disclosing a financial or proximity interest must not participate in that part of a briefing relating to their interest and must leave the meeting for the duration of the item. Agenda briefings are open to the public. This briefing is being live streamed to the public via the City's YouTube channel. And lastly, please ensure all mobile phones are turned off or at least on silent for the duration of the meeting. Just having said that, I do have my phone on and it may ring during the meeting. My father's in hospital at the moment and I might get a call from the hospital later on, so sorry about that. Announcements of a charity day. Councillor Tuchek, it's my distinct pleasure to hand over to you to discuss the reasoning why most of us around this room have a splash of light blue on us tonight. What's going on?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you everyone for dressing up in blue tonight. We are supporting the Charity Direct, WA Charity Direct. They have been raised $3 million for West Australians so far, and we've also donated some food for the Wunju food drive that the City of Canning are running as well. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Tuchek. At item 2, attendances. At item 2.1, we do have an apology from Councillor Michelle Hearn tonight. She's not able to make it. At item 2.2, approved leave of absence. Councillor Singh continues his approved leave of absence, which has been from the 10th of December 2024 and extends through to the 22nd of April in 2025. At disclosures of interest at item 3, Chief Executive Officer Mr Michael Littleton, do we have any?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've received no declarations of interest for tonight's briefing.
That being the case, we shall move on to question times for the public. Responses to previous questions taken on notice, there are none. Questions from the public. Does anyone wish to ask a question tonight? Thank you. There are no questions tonight unless we have something on notice. No, I don't think we do, so we shall move on. Thank you. I will not move to open public question time. We shall move to 4.3, deputations. There are none. Items brought forward at item 5 for the convenience of those in the public gallery. There are none. Reports of committee meetings at item 6. There are none. The first report is item 7. The officer responsible is Mr Michael Littleton, the Chief Executive Officer. It's item OC 001 of 25. The title of the report being 2025 Local Government Ordinary Elections. When this matter goes to Council next week, there will be a requirement for an absolute majority is required. The recommendation for this item is on page 7 of tonight's agenda and it appears on screen. Are there any questions in relation to that item? Yes, Councillor Page first of all.
Thank you. Just want to understand that the WAEC has its standard, but does the City recommend the AusPost priority service as part of this package?
We've actually done that previously. I'll just answer it off the cuff, but I mean, we've done that previously, and I think the experience at the last election, we spent a considerable amount of money via a council resolution to do that, thinking we're doing the right thing, and I may be proven wrong, but I don't think there was any advantage in spending that extra ratepayer money on that service. I don't think we got bang for our buck, but I'll be corrected. Mr Littleton or Mr Yildiz?
Thank you, and through you, Mr Mayor. The priority service provides as it says, a priority that they'll ensure that they will go out on a certain time. But to be able to then compare it to a non-priority is very difficult to do because it changes from year to year. We recommend on the basis to ensure that there's some form of guarantee for Australia Post to go by the priority service.
Thank you. Councillor Kunza?
It's probably best directed to you, Mr Mayor. I was just going to ask, last year we considered items relevant to WALGA's advocacy or positions with how the WAEC has conducted the 2023 election. I was just wondering if there's been any feedback or actions taken to provide a bit more level of guarantee in terms of the service for the 2025 elections.
You've asked me a question without notice. I can certainly answer it with a little bit more notice. I can provide you something in writing. There was a real lag time. Obviously, the WAC was providing a report to WALGA, or a report to government on the conduct of the election. I think that's now been received. I know that WALGA were looking at some recommendations on the strength of that and had actually had some input into it, but nothing came out of it of any great note from my recollection of it. Most of it was around feedback from councils, including City of Canning, who provided feedback on issues that we had, and you're well aware of them. We had some big issues during the whole of the count. I can provide more information if you like, but I'll certainly have a look for that report for you if you like.
Sorry, but just staff know any responses from the WAEC with respect to the issues raised? Taking WALGA out of it.
Mr.
Just
Yordles?
whether WAEC has said anything?
Thank you, and through the Mayor, I understand the department is continuing dialogue with the WAEC about some of the issues that were raised. We may not understand from a public perspective on what changes will be implemented unless the WAEC issues out a statement in that regard. But I understand there is ongoing dialogue about improving the processes for the customers.
Can I just ask a question myself? I did make a few comments a moment ago about the service that was provided at the last election. My understanding, Mr. Yordles, was that we did pay the additional for the priority post. We didn't actually receive the performance we expected from that. In fact, they couldn't guarantee when they would be actually delivered or when they'd actually be posted. So despite spending all that money, I'm not absolutely certain we got the right result. Can you recall, you weren't here at the time, I don't think, but have you received that feedback, or can we find out what happened last year? Because, you know, we're looking at spending a considerable amount of money. We need to make sure that we're actually going to get a priority post.
Thank you. And through you, in response to your question, Mr. Mayor, yes, I wasn't here for the 2023 election, but I do understand Australia's post service levels, whilst it provides a level of comfort, it doesn't provide a guarantee. So the priority gives you a level of comfort that they'll be prioritised those particular packages to go out at a certain time, but they do not provide a guarantee that you can hold them to.
Thank you. Yes, CEO, Michael Littleton.
Look, I think the commentary, certainly the City of Canning provided the WAC direct feedback and also WALGA direct feedback in response to the way that the elections were conducted. That feedback was largely consistent throughout the industry. Obviously, optional preferred preferential voting created some issues for the WAC on the day. We saw that specifically, and the inability to be able to move into the next tranche of counting. All of that feedback was received. Whilst we haven't received any formal feedback, particularly the way that the election was conducted, we do expect that there will be substantial changes that will address those particular elements on the day of the count. So we're comfortable that it was certainly the first time that particular voting methodology was trialled here for some time, and our expectation is that WAC will be much better placed to provide a more streamlined counting service next time.
Thanks, councillors. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in addition to CEO Littleton's comments, in the cost estimates letter, the Commissioner asked for suggestions that the improvements that the WAEC can make. Will the City again submit its feedback that it has done prior?
CEO.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll continue to engage actively with the WAC. It's in our interest to make sure that that the process is as streamlined and we get results as quickly as we can. Fortunately, our 25 election won't be a mayoral election, so that won't happen again.
What do you mean, unfortunately?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately? Did I say unfortunately? That must have been a Freudian slip. So fortunately, there won't be a mayoral election. So we'll get straight into the count, and that will be, we think, a much more streamlined process for 25.
Councillor Bain, my view on that is, in relation to your question, and thanks, CEO, you're right. I mean, we should be debriefing and sending our feedback back every year. They're a service provided to us. It's not a free service. It's going to cost our ratepayers $300,000, and we should provide feedback just as business as usual. So, I think that'll happen, and the CEO's indicated it will. So, yeah, good point. Thanks, councillors. Any further questions before we move on? Thank you. The next item up is also from the Office of the CEO. It's a late item on the agenda. It's the matter of elected members' superannuation. It's item OC 002 of 25. The recommendation is on page 16 as a late item and is on screen. Any questions in relation to that item? Councillor Secon, yes.
Thank you, Mehal. Just in reference to works and fit-outs on page 8, the proposed key lease terms, just wanted to find out, has the renovations and fit-outs for the old and
We're just on you're on the wrong item.
Oh.
We're on superannuation.
Oh,
We're on the late item. That's okay. Any questions before we move on? Councillor Kunza, thank you.
Thank you. Just through you, with respect to paragraph 10, the internal budget, it basically reads that the cost of paying superannuation for elected members will be met by the City of Canning out of its existing budget. That's generally something stated when there's a new initiative brought in, but my understanding is this was actually part of the budget and there's actually funding provided. And so, in fact, if this was approved, there'd be an underspend in that area, given that it's as of February. So I just wondered if that might be changed, that paragraph, to actually reflect that there's actual funding past 8 months ago for this specific purpose.
Mr Yildiz, that's a good question, and I thought that was the case myself. I thought we'd made a budget allocation.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, there's definitely a budget allocation there. From the top of my head, I understand it's about 65,000 that's put aside for superannuation, and that was for the whole year. Obviously, there'll be a saving now because it'll only start from the 1st of Feb.
The question was, can we have that added to the report? Because that's not clear in the report. When you read paragraph 10 there, as Councillor certainly correctly pointed out, it's not clear to people that we've actually already budgeted and accounted for that in the current budget.
Absolutely, we can definitely.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bone?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe the City of Stirling and the Town of Victoria Park have already moved to making super contributions to elected members, and I believe you might have mentioned earlier, Mr Mayor, that the City of Gosnells are considering it tonight. Is the City aware of any other local governments that have moved before the deadline approaches?
Look, I'll just provide some background on. I actually have been involved in this at a state council level, and also I took part in a webinar late last week on this item. Was presented by the department itself. So what they're actually doing is we're a Band 1 council, of course. The Band 1 and 2 councils, Victoria Park is a Band 2. It will be compulsory from the first day after the October local government elections. The reason why they're allowing people to transition between now and then, the only reason for the transition piece is because a lot of councils have not done what we did. They haven't actually allocated in their budget. And so some of these councils may take some time to transition across because they haven't allocated budget, and they may choose to leave it until October. For those in our position who already have, it's far simpler. And the reason why it's compulsory from the October date is they wanted to capture every new councillor elected at the local government elections in 2025. So that's why it will be compulsory from that date, but they're expecting, I would think, most councillors will actually transition during that time. I would think that in February there'll be many councils actually considering this item. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Bone.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can the City confirm if all Eastern States councils have moved to compulsory superannuation contributions?
Mr Yildiz, do you know?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think we'll have to take that on notice to confirm.
Yeah, I can tell you that because I did a lot of research on this. Most of them, I think they all do. Not sure about South Australia, but they treat it differently. So the superannuation in Victoria, for instance, they don't pay it as we're doing it here. They actually pay it as an additional allowance. So they call it the superannuation allowance. So on top of your fees, they give you another amount of money that's equal to the contribution required under the Superannuation Act, and it's up to you to actually pay that contribution. So yes, they do. It's just treated differently. This is a far easier, simpler, and is covered by legislation. So this is a legislative instrument to achieve the same outcome. I think the answer to your question is almost unanimously yes. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you. We shall move on to the next item, which is from the office of Ms Lorraine Driscoll, the Director of Corporate and Commercial. This too was a late item. It's the leasing arrangements for the Rostrata Family Centre. The report is CC 001 of 25. Are there any questions in relation to this item? I know the Deputy Mayor asked a couple of questions, and I just think that Councillor Shen Sekon might have a question. Councillor Sekon, do you want to go again?
Thank you. Yeah, just in reference to works and fit-outs on page 8, so I just wanted to find out, has the renovations and fit-outs for the old and new building been budgeted for, or is this an additional cost?
Mr Driscoll? Oh.
Thank
Director
you.
Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My understanding is that the building project itself reached practical completion 20th of December last year, and the contract with A. Hoskins for the complete project is concluded. So my understanding is that the works are budgeted, and my understanding is that they're complete. So unfortunately, I missed a walkthrough last week, but I know the CEO was able to attend. Are you aware of any incomplete or outstanding works, Councillor Second? Okay. I'll confirm that though.
Thank you, CEO.
We're just in the walk around. I can confirm that that the building works are complete. The remaining fit out is by Rostrata Family Centre, particularly around furniture. So they are currently waiting to unlock a grant fund from the state government. They are working to have that achieved as quickly as they can, so they can complete furniture and furnishing the extension.
And I think landscaping is the only thing at the moment that we'll be waiting for the planting season. So everything's coming down, but the landscaping won't be done for a little while because it's just too hot. Thank you. Councillor, Deputy Mayor, you've asked yours questions already. Thank you. Anyone else have a question? Councillor Kunza, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. With respect to paragraph 12 and the issues with dealing with the department, just wondering why the state government, given that it has wanted to divest the lease to us for quite some time, why they've dragged their feet on it? Why was it so hard to deal with the state government?
Ms Driscoll.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. I don't have any specific reason other than there were a number of personnel changes in the department at the time, and it took some time to get response to some of the questions in regard to the lease and the position that their preference. So as you can see in the report, we finally had advice from them in November, but it took some time to get that due to change of people.
I thought that was a rhetorical question. It's always difficult to get anything out of the state government.
Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Kunza, follow up.
Oh, there seems to be a minister there every second, so I just wondered why they would drag their feet on it. With paragraph 20, so paragraph 20 talks to the tenure and the length of the lease. In the letter from the Rostrata Family Centre, they outline the reasons why they want a longer lease in terms of security of tenure, that the security of tenure gives them better placement to get the funding agreement. But then paragraph 20 talks about the fact that because they get a 5-year service funding contract with the department, it's more preferable to actually align them with a 5+5 lease. Given that we have a 12-month clause, get-out clause with them, I just wondered why we want. I don't understand the argument with respect to aligning it with the 5-year cycles of the funding agreement when they need that security of tenure.
Ms Driscoll.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. I guess there's a number of factors that were taken into consideration. Firstly, the tenure that's being recommended by officers complies with our policy around tenancy. And also it's reflecting the fact that it's a new lease arrangement directly with this organisation, and noting that their service contracts are on a 5-year basis. So the letter that came in after the terms were agreed with the community group.
Councillor Kunza?
Which letter are you referring to?
The letter that's attached to this report requesting a longer tenure.
But isn't that letter 12 months ago?
This negotiation has been going for quite a while.
Okay. Just because, so effectively, in 10 years' time, their funding agreement will come up at the same time as their as this lease. Whereas in the past, they've had problems with their funding agreement because they had problems with their tenure of their lease. Reading the letter, it's obvious that they have issues. They're anxious about that because the experiences they had in the past, and yet we've written that as an argument as to give them a 5+5. It just doesn't seem to reflect the anxiety. So in 10 years' time, they're potentially going to be in a position where they're asking for a funding agreement, but they don't have any tenure. Was there a way of trying to make it so they had that security of tenure, didn't match the 5-year funding agreements? Do you understand what I mean?
Mr Driscoll, do you understand what he means?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I think I do. But I guess the recommendation is based around the policy, and that's what the officers are doing. There is an option for you to consider a longer tenure should you require, and I understand the complexities for the group as well. I'm not sure if I'm answering it. Am I understanding your question correctly?
Yeah, well, in the past, we've not generally had as far as I understand in previous contracts some time ago, had the 12-month get-out clause. If the concern is that it's a new group, given their anxiety over how the funding agreements line with the lease, and that the city has the capacity through the 12-month clause to get out of the contract if it's not working, why we would be fearful of giving a longer contract, a longer lease, sorry. To me, reading this, the family centre is anxious about having a short security of lease that aligns with their funding agreements, and we've said that's a reason to actually give them a short lease.
CEO, did you want to add any commentary to that? I understand
Yeah, I think
the question.
obviously, I think Mr Driscoll has obviously explained the rationale. What we would say is that I appreciate that they've sought a longer tenure. They are also comfortable with the tenure that has been provided. I think there is a clear difference in the relationship of this building now, in that it is solely, with the city, and so the department is no longer involved or engaged. So we will be able to continue to look at the lease tenure as we work through the agreement. There will be nothing. I would argue that the lease renewal process will be fairly seamless. Remember, we've also sought to take a more active role in how the facility is being operated through a seat on the board and more direct understanding of their financials. So I think the point that Mr Driscoll made is it is open for council to consider a longer lease tenure. We do have a 12-month termination clause in this lease, as we do now in all community leases. The 5+5 is consistent with our policy position. Moreover, we think that it's a reasonable proposition as we step into a new agreement with Rostrata in more of a partnership environment. Remember, we've built this facility specifically as a family centre. I think sitting here today would see that there would be no reason, assuming that things continue to operate effectively, that they wouldn't continue to be there for many years to come. So I think the lease tenure is probably, appreciate there's some anxiety, but we don't see that as a significant issue. And whilst they would prefer a longer tenure, they're comfortable with the tenure that's been offered as well.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Costa?
Just one further question. Just with respect to the seamless transition on a lease renewal, I guess what you've just said in terms of we built it as a family centre, and that it would be an argument as to why we wouldn't give a longer lease. We've actually had a recent history of having many leases expire and been in limbo for quite some time because we've not got to those leases, and we've still got centres that don't have leases. Given that there's a 12-month capacity for the city to get out of it, in reading this, why we didn't, and you don't need to answer this because I'm basically going over what we just said, but why you wouldn't give a longer tenure, given that it's built as a family centre. The city is caught up in having to
You get the
read new
opportunity
leases
to
all the
discuss
time.
that next Tuesday.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. In the absence of any further questions on that item, we shall move on to the monthly financial report. Thank you, Councillor Kunza. It's CC 002 of 25, the monthly financial report for November last year. The officer's recommendation is on screen. It also appears on page 20 of the agenda. Are there any questions in relation to the content of the monthly financial report? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I think I got the right one. It could be in December's. I'll just double check. But Barracuda Playground says that it was $60,000 over budget. Could I just get an explanation as to what that $60,000 was for, please?
Director Bowe.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In effect, it was an error in allocating the budget. It wasn't a local park or a pocket park. It was a category above that, and in effect, we just under-allocated the money, and rather than deliver a much smaller playground for that classification of park, we spent the standard allocation for that type of park and have funded it through budget review.
That makes sense. And with the lights at Willerton Park, I assume that's what the Willerton Park Stage 1 is. There's been some concerns raised by the user groups there that the new lux, or the lux on the new lights, is going to be lower than what's already there. Is that true?
Is it 50 at the moment?
I can take that question on notice and provide a written response.
The standard's 100 at Lux at the moment, though, isn't it?
In our new deliveries, yes, it is, Mr. Mayor, for larger ball sports. But given baseball is operating there, I'll check with our projects engineer and revert to elected members.
Any further questions? Thank you. Oh, Councillor Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 24, I note there's been a positive variance in the fees and charges from the leisure plexes, as there has been for a number of financial reports recently. Just wondering if the city expects a dip in revenue whilst the works are being conducted at the leisure plexes. Thank you.
Gary, did you want to answer that one?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there will be a slight decrease in revenue. I think we're forecasting about 10 to 15K, and they'll be picked up in the mid-year budget review.
Thank you, councillors. We shall then move on to the next item, which is item CC 003 of 25. It's the monthly financial report for December 2024. The recommendation is on page 61 and also appears on screen. Any questions from the December financial report? Deputy Mayor? No? Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that there looks to have been some movement regarding the Southern Link Stage 3 project. The report mentions that the city has been advised by Western Power that it wants to keep the land. Can the city advise if the clearing permit has been granted by DEWA? And could we please have an update provided in the OCM papers because it is a matter of significant public interest. Thank you.
Director Bride?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're still waiting on that permit from DEWA, so that hasn't been issued yet. And obviously, as soon as we get a decision on that, we'll make sure all the local elected members are made available. In terms of the Western Power issue, yes, they have looked at retaining the land, but we are in negotiations with them about undertaking some sort of a lease arrangement. So, again, as soon as we find more information, we'll get a result on that. We'll let elected members know.
Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the warrant listings, there's a couple of references to study assistance monies being paid. Can the city expand on that, please?
Ms. Driscoll.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Study assistance is made available to staff for pursuit of additional study they want to undertake as part of their role, and which adds to their contribution to the role. And the study assistant payments are a reimbursement of the percentage of the expenditure that they pay for that study.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions before we move on?
One more, thank you, Mr Mayor. The corporate credit card transactions, the 4th of December, $2,500 for a Perth Mint civic event. I don't remember seeing that advertised on our internal calendar. Can we please have more details about this event?
Mr Yildiz.
Thank you, and through the Mayor, I understand that's a payment for some of the gold coins for the citizenship ceremonies that are given to the newly citizens of Australia.
It would have been a bulk purchase.
So it wasn't an event,
No,
as
it
it's
wasn't
listed.
an event. Is it listed as an event, is it? Oh. It's a civic event, yeah. Any further questions, councillors? Thank you. We shall move on then to item 7.3. The responsible officer is Mr Graham Bride, the Director of Planning and Development. PD 001 of 25 is the first report. The item's title is Scheme Amendment number 17 to Local Planning Scheme number 42, proposed additional use in brackets Medical Centre, number 12 in brackets lot 210, Robbins Place in Shelley. The recommendation is on page 100 of the agenda and is on screen. Any questions in relation to that item? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Is a chiro, optometrist and psychologist considered as a medical practitioner?
Director?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, yeah, all those subcategories are grouped into a medical centre land use, yeah.
Allied Health.
So this is a retrospective application because that facility has been operating with those three services for quite some time now.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, there was originally an optometrist back in, I think, in 1997. Then there were some recent extensions, and there was a retrospective approval in relation to a car parking upgrade, some building renovations, which accommodated two practitioners. Two practitioners under the definition of consulting rooms is allowed in a residential area. What they're seeking now is a third practitioner through a scheme amendment. As far as we're aware, there's two practitioners operating from the site. There can be more than two, but no more than two at any one time. But certainly, if you have any information to the counter, we'll love to hear it.
Deputy Mayor?
It's just that I have had some complaints about the parking issues. I know that they have certainly done their best to accommodate the parking, but are there any, as far as this application is concerned, is there any restrictions other than the two practitioners at any one time, and how is that going to be enforced, considering a lot of their customers still do park on the verge and not in the actual allocated parking bays?
Director Bride.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, the parking requirement for three practitioners is 14 bays, so they've got those 14 bays on site. Given the type of operators, compared to, say, a GP who has a shorter turnaround of clients, the parking is compliant with the scheme, and the medical uses usually have a longer appointment time. So we can't ask for any more parking if this goes through, is gazetted, and they have three practitioners. They are meeting the city's parking requirements.
Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, just one more question. If the clients continue to park on the verge, there is no parking restrictions to do that. Would that then we would have to come back and make those areas a no parking zone? Because obviously it's not enforceable without a sign.
Director Bright, is that something that can be added to the recommendation to prevent people parking on the verge, considering where it is on the corner of 5th Avenue and Leach Highway, which we know is already a problem intersection, or would that have to be dealt with separately?
Through Mr Mayor, I think it would have to be dealt with separately, and obviously if it becomes an ongoing issue, then we can certainly have a look at that.
Thank you. Anything further, councillors, on that item? Councillor Kunze, yes?
Through you to Director Bride, how does the public consultation impact? Obviously, we've been asked to approve the scheme amendment.
Director Bride?
And then you'll have public consultation. If there's lots of negative responses, how does that get dealt with?
Director Bride.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, so if Council does next week agree to initiate the amendment, it'll go out to surrounding landowners. We'll have an opportunity to put in a submission, and Council will be able to look at those submissions as part of the final approval process. And certainly if those submissions sway Council in its deliberations, Council can certainly resolve not to proceed with the amendment. So the submissions will have a pretty big indicator of, I guess, the Council's position at the end of the day.
Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the next item then. The next item is the final item on tonight's agenda. It's item 7.4. Mr Warren Bowe, the Director of Infrastructure and Environment, is the responsible officer. It's IE 001 of 25. The report title is RFQ FM 037320, replacement of 5-time side loaders for waste management services. The recommendation is on page 110 of the agenda and is on the screen right now. Councillors, any questions in relation to the RFQ? Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just wondering when the city believes that it might be in the sector ready to look at purchasing fleets of electric waste vehicles. Thank you.
Director Bowe? You've got a wry smile on your face, Director Bowe. We're a little bit away from that at the moment, a bit far off that.
Oh, look, thank you, Mr Mayor. I wouldn't want to put a time frame on it, but the vehicles that have the waste truck vehicles that have been, I guess, prototypes and tested in the market that are electric vehicles haven't been successful. The battery life is not conducive to the operational requirements of collecting rubbish bins and then transporting them without recharge. The next mover in the sector or the provision of waste vehicles is likely to be hydrogen-powered vehicles. So, but I can, Mr. Badeno may be able to offer some more information if he's got it. But I can provide an update to all elected members on that one if you like, Councillor Bain.
Yeah, so the EV vehicles, the City of Cockburn actually did a trial with an EV vehicle. So they had I believe it was a Iveco Acco with a superior pack body, so very similar to what we currently run in terms of the body. And they were doing about 400 bins and then basically complete loss of power. So that wasn't conducive with the runs, which are generally about 12 to 1,300 bins with our sort of runs in place. In terms of hydrogen, there's a bit of movement in it, but it's still very much, it's a long way away. We're probably 10 years away from having that as a standard offering in the waste game.
Thank you. Councillor Kunza.
But just out of interest, with respect to the fact that each truck is expected to collect over 2 million mobile garbage bins during its lifespan, how much is impacted of where we take our rubbish? So obviously now we're going down to Kwinana. How has that impacted how long the trucks are supposed to last?
Mr Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Our current fleet of vehicles has been operating for about 10,000 hours, which generally exceeds the benchmark for those types of vehicles. We made a decision about 5 years back to, I guess in a period of uncertainty about the continuation of insourcing versus outsourcing, and then with COVID, to just run our vehicles for that little bit longer. Ultimately, now they are definitely requiring changeover, having exceeded the 10,000 hour threshold. The additional time and the additional kilometres that we will have to run our vehicles to Kwinana Energy Recovery has further bolstered the need to renew our fleet, and we've got another 3 trucks over the next year or so, I think, that are up for renewal. So ultimately, yes, it will impact the changeover of these vehicles. Councillor Kunza.
Thank you. Yes, CEO.
Just to provide some additional commentary, what will also likely happen is we'll need to increase the fleet. So the number of lifts that we need to do per day doesn't change. The distance that we have to travel to dispose does. So effectively, we either run the trucks for a longer period per day, or we have to increase the fleet to be able to do the same amount of collections per day. So they're the sorts of nuances that we're currently working through from a logistics viewpoint with the change of location and a modern fleet that is able to manage the workload as well as have the appropriate emissions control is always important, and that's why this fleet will be certainly very important for us as we continue to transition our service in waste management.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kunz. Anything further? No. Any further questions? Thank you, councillors. The next item, 7.5, is Mr. Gary Fisher, the Director of Customer and Community. There are no reports from that directorate. At item 8, notices a motion for consideration at the next ordinary council meeting. There are none. At item 9, urgent business, we do have an item of urgent business. So the Deputy Mayor would like to address council publicly while we have her here. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and councillors and directors for allowing me to address you this evening. Tonight, I announce that this will be my last council meeting as the Deputy Mayor and Councillor for the Bannister Ward of the City of Canning. It's with immense gratitude and pride that I share my decision to resign with you all, as I look forward to pursue broader opportunities to contribute to our community in new and impactful ways. When I first stood for council, I was driven by a clear purpose, and that was to address the long-standing delays in delivering the Shelley Beach Park playground. Today, I'm proud to say that this playground, which represents so much more than just a recreational space, has been brought to life, symbolising what determination and collaboration can achieve. Throughout my tenure, I've had the privilege to work alongside an incredible team, and together we've accomplished so much. From upgrading a record number of playgrounds, sporting facilities and community infrastructure, to saving the Canning Vale Kangaroos through a groundbreaking translocation project. Our achievements have had a lasting impact. Shelley now boasts its first ever dedicated dog park. Our community leases are almost 100% resolved, and we've endorsed critical strategies like our community infrastructure strategy, which paves the way for much needed indoor courts. Together, we've made tough but wise financial decisions. We have a clear plan to improve road safety around schools. We've planted a record number of trees and demonstrated our commitment to environmental sustainability with initiatives like bird waterers and nesting boxes. These milestones are a testament to what can be achieved when purpose meets action. As councillors, we're caretakers of the seats that we hold, entrusted by our community to make decisions that improve their lives and the future of our city. I leave this role with a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that I've upheld this responsibility with purpose, conviction, and unwavering, and I'm sure annoying, dedication. To my colleagues, both past and present, thank you for your support, your collaboration, and even your opposition, each of which have shaped me, strengthened me, and prepared me for what comes next. To Patrick and Michael, thank you for your steady leadership and for the work that you do to guide and support our community. I look forward to continuing our professional relationships and friendships, but in new capacities. To my co-councillor and very good friend, Ben, your wisdom and perspective has been incredibly invaluable. I'm very grateful for the support and guidance that you've offered me in the last 5 years. To the incredible staff and directors, thank you for your partnership and for believing in the vision that we've worked so hard to realise. Together, we've achieved extraordinary outcomes, and I hope you share the pride of what we've built together. Finally, to my family, your unwavering support has been my foundation. You've motivated me to strive for a better home, community, and future, not just for us, but for all of those that we call neighbours, friends, and family. While I'm stepping away from this seat, my dedication to our community remains steadfast. It's not farewell, but it's the beginning of a new chapter. One where I will continue to be annoying, advocate, contribute and support to the growth and well-being of the city in new ways. To my fellow councillors, I leave you with this. Have purpose, act with conviction and always prioritise the people who place their trust in you. This role, though challenging, is one of the most rewarding when approached with the right intentions. Thank you to the community for trusting me to represent you. And thank you to my colleagues for walking this path with me. I look forward to what lies ahead and to continue to serve in ways that will make a meaningful difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you for that, and congratulations on the term that you've served and the work that you've done. Frankly, you serve as a real role model for other councillors and those that will come after you and come after all of us. Amanda works incredibly hard, reads everything, asks questions, does so in a respectable manner. And while she's forthright, she is annoying. But she gets things done. And Ben and I met Amanda years ago when she was the president of the community kindergarten, and we saw in her, a future leader, and she has become that person. Very proud of you, and I know Ben is, and obviously your family, and you've been a very, very fine councillor, an extraordinarily supportive deputy mayor. In fact, I've had 3 deputy mayors since I was elected some years ago. You and Ben are in my top 2, so congratulations on that. Be almost a dead heat. But thank you in all seriousness, and I wish you very well in the election coming. And just to confirm, you're not able to make next week's ordinary council meeting, but you will still be a councillor until are you resigning effective immediately, or you will be okay? All right. Just wanted to absolutely clarify that. So thank you once again on behalf of your colleagues here. We look forward to catching up with you and seeing your future success. Well done on a job well done, and the role you've played on this council for a number of years. Thanks so much. Thank you. Right, we will finish the meeting now. Confidential items at item 10, there are none. At item 11, closure, there being no further business tonight, I now declare the agenda briefing closed. The time being, is it? 6:47 p.m, and I thank everybody sincerely for their attendance. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, staff.